first, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
And hello, everyone. This is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thanks for joining us. I wanted to pull that up. That is our live look at downtown Portland right now, and much different than the ones you have seen over the last 90 days or however long it's been going on. You can talk to Fox 12 Weather about how long it's been, but I know I haven't seen this picture with cloudy, rainy weather there in downtown in a while, so I just wanted to bring that up to show everybody what's going on. And again, thanks for joining us. We're here live every weekday, starting at 1 p.m. Pacific, going throughout the afternoon, covering a wide range of topics here on this show. You can follow us at kptv.com, on the Fox 12 Oregon app, or on YouTube, or wherever you're finding us now. Thanks for being here with us. So today, though, we are talking about hydrogen energy. Hydrogen energy is probably something you've seen mentioned. You may know a lot about it. You may not. This interview, we're going to start off with not knowing a lot. And we're going to go through that and talk about the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub, including a large amount of federal funding that was just granted to them to start building these hubs. So we're going to get into all of this here as we go through the interview. But to do so, we've got our expert joining us right now, Janine Benner, who is in part the director of the Oregon Department of Energy. That's a pretty big role right there, but also part of the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub. And Janine, thanks for joining us. Can you tell us about your role with this hydrogen energy organization?
Yes, Greg, thanks so much for the question. It's really great to be here this afternoon with your viewers. As you mentioned, in addition to my day job at the Oregon Department of Energy, I am also the vice chair of the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Association. And that is a public-private partnership, organizations from the state of Washington, state of Oregon, Montana, tribal interests, environmentalists, industry, coming together to apply to funding with the U.S. Department of Energy to get money to really launch a clean hydrogen economy here in the Pacific Northwest.
And so that's a huge region right there, but looking at it, from the Northwest wide organization. So when it comes to hydrogen energy, can you give us the basic explainer of what is hydrogen energy and how it's created?
Absolutely. Well, I'll start with hydrogen, which is actually the lightest and most abundant element in the universe. And it can exist as a gas or, if supercooled, a liquid. On Earth, hydrogen is an element most commonly found in the greatest quantities within water molecules. So your viewers are probably familiar with the chemical formula H2O. Hydrogen is the H2 part of that. And it's actually considered an energy carrier, not an energy source, because it has to be produced using other sources of energy. And that energy is used to separate or extract the hydrogen from the water, leaving behind oxygen. As an energy carrier, hydrogen is really exciting. It has a lot of potential uses.
Yeah, and this is obviously in abundance here in the Northwest if we look at it from the water standpoint. So when you're talking about creating hydrogen energy here or harvesting it, I'm not sure what the right term would be. Are you talking about utilizing the water sources that we have here and the natural environmental aspects that we can incorporate here in the Northwest?
Yep, exactly. And we call it producing hydrogen. So it can be used once it's produced as a transportation fuel, it can be used for power generation, it can be used for making fertilizer, it can be used for heating, has lots of uses. And that's one of the reasons why we're so excited about this at the Oregon Department of Energy, because we see it as a really important tool in our toolbox of solutions for decarbonization, greenhouse gas reductions, because hydrogen can be produced cleanly and we can substitute it for energy uses that are currently fossil fuel based.
And I definitely want to talk about the clean side of things and how this is going to be, can be a green energy in that side. Real quick though, you mentioned some of the use cases. So currently, are there organizations or machines or things that are currently using hydrogen energy, or is this something that's more set up for future iterations?
Yes, there are a lot of uses of hydrogen right now, but it's mostly fossil based. So the future piece of it is the clean hydrogen. Approximately 10 million tons of hydrogen are produced annually in the United States currently. And I just learned recently that in the 1950s, NASA was one of the first entities to use hydrogen fuel cells to provide electricity to spacecraft. And they're actually using hydrogen right now, splitting it into oxygen and hydrogen for the International Space Station for breathing and power.
So,
but the new part of it, sorry, as you mentioned, is the clean part. So we're looking to really build up our ability to produce hydrogen without greenhouse gas emissions.
And so that's something that's not currently being done. So with these hubs, how is it that you would go about that, generally speaking, in producing hydrogen without any carbon emissions?
So the technology that we'll be using is called electrolysis, and that's where electricity is put into water to break out the hydrogen. And that's a technology that is existing, but is sort of in a it's not very common. The price is coming down as there are more use cases. And so we've got a number of projects in the Pacific Northwest that are part of the hub. There's 17 projects in 8 nodes around the region that will be using electrolysis to produce the hydrogen. And then there will be other, oh, nice map there. That's exactly where the 8 nodes are. And then there will be entities around those nodes that actually use the hydrogen. So everybody from a power generation company to heavy duty transportation, transit, a lot of different use cases.
Okay, so yeah, so a lot of things that are going to be utilizing these hubs and trying to incorporate that hydrogen or incorporating that hydrogen energy into that. So I guess one quick question I have, because I'm sure somebody's going to ask it. So you mentioned it's using electricity and electrolysis in some way, shape, or form. I won't get into the chemistry side of it, but to produce that hydrogen, is that electricity that would be used, is that sourced in a green way as well?
Yes, great question. And I appreciate not getting into too many of the details because I'm also not a chemist.
Yeah.
But we will be using dedicated electricity from wind or solar at the site of the node, or calling on electricity from the electric grid, which, as you know, in Oregon and also in Washington, is just getting cleaner every day as our ambitious climate policies start to come into play.
Excellent. So looking at that, thank you for answering that one. And as you start producing, more and more hydrogen from these different areas, I'm assuming it's stored on site since the use cases are going to be somewhere near each one of those. But is this something that you could see being mass produced and, I guess, shippable, containable in other places? Is there a plan for that? Should this be a successful demonstration?
I think that's the hope. I think that we're starting, I'm not going to say we're starting small because we're starting with $1 billion project, but we're starting with these specific nodes where we will demonstrate out this new technology. And then we hope that it will become more abundant around the region, and then eventually around the country. So we're one of 7 hubs that the U.S. Department of Energy has funded through funding from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, or bipartisan infrastructure law, with the idea of really starting to build the hydrogen economy with this federal investment.
And when we look at the infrastructure building that's going to be happening with that, how will that affect those regional areas, I guess these 8 hubs where it's going to be, and then subsequent infrastructure within those communities to help support utilizing this hydrogen?
We think it'll be a great opportunity for those communities. We anticipate the hub creating 10,000 jobs throughout the life of the project. We're seeing in some of these different nodes, if you look at your map, there's some, like if you look at node 6 out in Boardman,
a little
that's
small
the site
for anybody at home. Sorry about that, but sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh, no worries. So Boardman is the site of what was actually the last running coal plant in Oregon that was shut down a few years ago. And that will become the site of an electrolysis facility that will produce clean hydrogen. So I think we're really hoping that this hub will be both decarbonization strategy, but also an economic development strategy for communities around the region. We'll be putting together a community benefits plan, working closely with labor, the environmental community, tribes, and the communities that will be hosting this infrastructure.
And going back to those hubs and talking about the local community, how much will be needed for them for, say, whether it's some industrial purposes or transit services, how much will they have to retroactively refit their vehicles or these new vehicles in order to take advantage of the hydrogen that's going to be produced?
That's a good question, and it depends on, I think, the use case of the particular node. So there are transit entities that are already investing in hydrogen buses, for example, and what we're hoping to do is produce the hydrogen here to be able to supply those buses. In that, going back to that node 6, there will be a peaker plant, so an energy generation facility that will be purpose-built for that hydrogen, and that will involve building an entirely new facility.
And what's the response been like so far from, I guess, these communities, but also just the hydrogen and energy advocates as a whole since this was announced?
There's been a lot of enthusiasm, as you can imagine. Anytime the federal government is looking to invest $1 billion into a region, it's a big deal, especially a region like ours. And the thing that's been really exciting to be part of this hub is not only is it that $1 billion of federal investment that we're talking about, but a lot of money, private money coming in from the companies that are going to be developing these projects on the ground. So I would say there's a lot of enthusiasm in general. And then we're really starting to dig in with the communities as the projects are being scoped and developed and the feasibility analysis is being done. So we're seeing, I think, a lot of curiosity and interest, but also a lot of these communities have been hosts of energy infrastructure before that didn't necessarily come with a lot of benefits. And so we're hoping to do things differently this time.
Learning from the past and some of those other ways that energy was incorporated in. And as you mentioned, it's clean, so that's great right there. So pollution, I would imagine, within the community is not something that they're going to have to worry about. Are there other hubs like this or use cases nationally that are similar to this, or is this really an original project?
Definitely an original project. There are, as I mentioned, 6 other hubs around the country. The other one on the West Coast is in California. Our hub, I think, is the cleanest. It's the one that really does rely solely on renewable energy to develop the electricity to create the hydrogen. Some of the other hubs are using different technologies that will have some greenhouse gas associated with them. Some of them are doing carbon capture and sequestration associated with their hubs. But yes, ours is definitely unique.
And now that the funding's been granted, could you just give a quick overview of that and what that timeline is, if there is one so far, on when these projects will start to be constructed?
Sure, absolutely. So last October is when the U.S. Department of Energy announced that the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub would be one of the awarded hubs, and we've been in negotiations with USDOE since then. So what happened last Wednesday is they announced the award of phase 1 of the funding. So that's $27.5 million to do the initial planning, permitting, analysis activities, really to make sure that the hub concept overall, once we get into the nitty-gritty details, is going to work, is technologically and financially viable. It's also where we're going to start doing that on-the-ground engagement with communities to make sure that the projects are benefiting the communities that are hosting them. So that's all going to happen in phase 1. Phase 2, we'll get another tranche of funding from USDOE if we meet all of our obligations in phase 1. That's when really doing the technical planning, and it's not until phase 3 that we anticipate construction beginning. So that will be another 3 to 4 years from now. We really are at the groundbreaking part of this hub. Actually, no, not groundbreaking yet. We're not groundbreaking. We're at the beginning phases, I'll say.
The ground floor. I know what you meant.
Ground floor, that's what I meant.
So, but still 3 to 4 years to possible construction, that is a fairly short window to plan out something like this. And so that's pretty ambitious, I think, actually, too. Well, anything else that you think is important that people should know, or is there a location they can go to find out more information about the plans for this?
Yes, absolutely. I would encourage people to just pay attention to the hydrogen economy. Think about the ways that hydrogen can help reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the Pacific Northwest. The website for the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Association is pnwh2.com. PacificNorthwestHydrogen.com. So check out the website to get the latest on what's happening with the hub.
Well, Janine, thank you very much for joining us here today to talk about this and provide some more information for everybody watching. You know, there was the location you can go to find out more about it in case we didn't answer some of your questions, but I feel like we got a really good overview of where this ambitious project is going. And congrats on the funding, and looking forward to seeing this as it expands and grows throughout the next few years. Thanks, Janine.
Thanks so much for having me.
And for everybody watching, again, we are live here for Fox 12 Now. We're live in the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom. We do follow breaking news as well. And in case you didn't hear this morning, if you're watching here live, it's July 29th. And we do have news that the Oregon Department of Forestry has requested Oregon National Guard units to help them out with some of the wildfires. We've got the Oregon Department of Forestry joining us here at 1:30 p.m. Pacific, so that's about a little over 10 minutes from now. So you can hop right back in, whatever platform you're on, you can join me there. We can talk about that. So we're going to get ready for that. Big thank you to Janine to learn more about what's going on here with the Hydrogen Project. Feel free to share this segment. I'll talk to you soon. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.